The Chicago Bears have trimmed their roster down to 53 men. In this video, I'll be reacting to all the roster cuts and reacting to the final Bears 53-man roster. What's going on, guys? I'm back with another Chicago Bears news update video. This video is sponsored by Bet US Sportsbook Casino. More on them later in this video, but yeah, cut day is officially here. Ryan Poles cut the roster down to 53 men, and this roster still could change in the coming days before week 1. So this isn't like the final roster, because players could still be added. If Ryan Poles wants to go after somebody that got cut, he's obviously gonna have to cut somebody on the current 53-man roster. So unfortunately for the people that made this roster, they're still not guaranteed a roster spot, but at least for the time being, they did earn a roster spot on the Chicago Bears. The Bears cut a whole bunch of players. Obviously, some of the Hard Knocks stars got cut today, unfortunately. Guys like Theo Benedette, Austin Reed, a couple others. Reddy Steward got cut, which I was pretty sad about, but I'll talk about all these cuts right now in this video. And let's begin by talking about the vested veterans that were cut. Okay, so these are players with at least 4 seasons in the NFL that were released, so they're able to sign with any team right now. And these players that were cut were Brett Rippon, quarterback; Khari Blasingame, fullback; Colin Johnson, receiver; Steven Carlson, tight end; Aviante Collins, offensive line; Byron Cowart, defensive line; Greg Stroman Jr., defensive back; Adrian Colbert, defensive back; Tarvarius Moore, defensive back. So not too many surprises there, besides for Khari Blasingame getting cut. I know that they do plan to bring him back on practice squad, I believe, and then bring him back up to the 53-man roster after doing some roster reshuffling. I'm not totally sure how that whole thing works, but they do plan on bringing Khari back, I'm pretty sure, according to the reports I've seen on Twitter. And I know that Shane Waldron maybe does not use a fullback as much in this scheme as our previous offensive coordinator did, Luke Getsy, but Khari Blasingame could still be a big asset to the Chicago Bears, man. I mean, the way that he blocks, you know, in terms of the run game, him in pass protection too, like, he is a damn good fullback. So it would kind of suck to lose him, but I would also understand if we do lose him, because, you know, we're changing schemes, and this is a league now that does not utilize a fullback nearly as much as they used to. So, you know, Khari is gone for the time being. It was also a little bit surprising that Greg Stroman Jr. got cut. He's actually played a lot of snaps with the Bears at nickel the past couple seasons in place of Kyler Gordon and others. So he's actually, you know, had a good amount of playing time on the Bears. He performed relatively well, and as depth, he would have been a pretty good option to have. But clearly the Bears have so much competition at the cornerback spot right now, where even a talented guy like Greg Stroman Jr. could not make the roster because of how stacked our cornerback room actually is. So I'm pretty sure that Greg Stroman is going to be, you know, picked up pretty fast. He's probably not coming back on practice squad, because his services clearly could be of use to some other team on their 53-man roster. But other than those guys, I was not too surprised about any other guy getting cut. Brett Rippon, maybe surprised some people that the Bears are only keeping 2 quarterbacks, but you can bring up a quarterback from practice squad, I believe, 3 times in the middle of the season. They changed that rule. It used to be an unlimited amount of times last season, but apparently the NFLPA voted against that. So this season, you can only bring up a quarterback from the practice squad 3 times during the season. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. So, you know, maybe Brett Rippon goes to practice squad, maybe Austin Reed goes to practice squad, but guys, be real, okay? If we're down to our QB3, the season's probably cooked anyway. So it's not like it matters a whole lot, you know, that Brett Rippon got cut. But going over to the other players that were cut, okay, so these are players that were actually waived, and that means that other teams can claim them on the waiver wire. The waiver wire order is determined by the standings from last year, reverse of the standings. So obviously the worst team in the NFL, the Carolina Panthers, are #1 priority on the waivers, and they would have the first choice to pick up any of these guys, and goes on for the other teams, you know, in order of how they finished last year. And so these are the players we waived, okay? So Austin Reed, quarterback; Brendan Bates, tight end; Theo Benedict, offensive line; Jay Curhan, offensive line; Jamri Chroma, defensive line; Deshaun Mallory, defensive line; Micah Baskerville, linebacker; Carl Jones Jr., linebacker; Leon Jones, defensive back; Reddy Steward, defensive back; Ro Torrance, defensive back; Cameron Lyons, long snapper; Corliss Waitman, punter. And I want to talk about some notable guys that we cut here. The first is Brendan Bates. Okay, Brendan Bates had a fantastic preseason. Okay, he actually led the NFL in PFF grade for a tight end. He had fantastic production. He was very efficient on the routes that he was running, and seemed like a pretty good player in preseason. Obviously, this is a business though, and he has, three guys in front of him that are clearly not going to be cut. Okay, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis, obviously we're not going to be cut, and the Bears probably were not going to keep more than 3 tight ends on the roster. So hopefully Brendan Bates comes back on practice squad, but would not be totally surprised if he gets picked up to play elsewhere because he had a pretty fantastic preseason. Also was a little bit sad to see Micah Baskerville go because Micah Baskerville had a really good preseason. He had a lot more production than Noah Sewell did, but Noah Sewell made the roster instead because he was a 5th round pick of Ryan Poles. It really shows you that, you know, where you got drafted does matter to some extent, whether it's fair or not. Obviously, GMs are going to be more inclined to keep their draft picks over UDFAs because they invested more in the draft pick, which again, maybe is not fair, but that's just how the NFL works. Okay, that's how most general managers run things. So, you know, Micah Baskerville got cut. Maybe he does come back on practice squad because he has been on the Bears practice squad for a couple years now, I believe, or maybe just last year he was on Bears practice squad. But, you know, regardless, kind of sad to see him go. Obviously, very sad to see Reddy Steward go. My boy, Reddy Steward. I really thought he would make the team, but they kept Josh Blackwell over him, which I understand because Josh Blackwell already has NFL experience. Josh Blackwell is very good on special teams as well. So he brings more, you know, proven production than Reddy Steward does, you know, in terms of NFL games already played. But I really hope that Reddy Steward can somehow come back on practice squad because this guy was a beast during the preseason, during training camp as well. He intercepted Caleb Williams when he played with the Ones. He had 2 interceptions in the final preseason game, including a pick 6. I thought that performance would seal his spot on the roster, but unfortunately, I was wrong. So, you know, hope that Reddy Steward, if it's not with the Bears, he gets an opportunity to play elsewhere because he is a very talented player that I feel like just needs an opportunity, and hopefully some team gives him that opportunity. Looking at some of the other guys that I'm surprised about getting cut, I'm honestly not surprised about anybody else getting cut. You know, Austin Reed, we all knew that he was going to be cut, even though we all loved him and, you know, in Hard Knocks and his fun personality. Obviously, he wasn't beating Caleb Williams or Tyson Bagent on the QB depth chart, but I hope we bring him back on practice squad because he's a pretty fun player to root for. But yeah, besides those guys, it was not really surprising to see anybody else cut. And the Bears also did put 3 players on injured reserve. So they put Larry Borom, Jacob Martin, and Dante Pettis on IR, with only Borom and Martin designated to return. That means that Dante Pettis is basically done with the Bears. Okay, he's not going to be playing on the Bears at least this season because he is out for the year. But Larry Borom and Jacob Martin can come back at some point, which good to see. You know, we're still hanging on to depth there in terms of O-line depth. You know, Larry Borom, I know that he has his issues and does not fit the scheme maybe as well, but he has played a good amount of games for the Bears in the past, and he's, you know, decent depth to have. And Jacob Martin had some pretty strong performances in training camp, so good to see that the Bears kept him around at least for right now. Now, before I talk about the official Bears 53-man roster and kind of give you guys a glance of what it looks like, I do want to talk about the sponsor of this video, Bet US Sportsbook Casino. And guys, they have really good promotions going on right now. Okay, it's 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000, fastest withdrawals in the industry. If you guys want an example of a bet they have on their website right now, Bears to win the NFC North is plus 300. I'm definitely going to sprinkle a little bit of money on this one, even though, you know, obviously the Packers and the Lions are more favored to win the NFC North. I think there is a small chance that, you know, maybe if Caleb goes off, if the defense does, you know, really live up to expectations, maybe the Bears could somehow do it. So, you know, with those odds, I think that's a pretty fun bet to place if you just want to have some fun, right? So link is down below to sign up. Again, thank you Bet US for sponsoring today's video. But getting back to the video, talking about the Bears 53-man roster, going over it. So I'll put the picture of that on the screen right now. And this obviously is not listed in order, it's listed alphabetically, but for the quarterbacks, Tyson Bagent and Caleb Williams made the team. For the running backs, Khalil Herbert, Travis Homer, Roshan Johnson, and DeAndre Swift made the team. For the receivers, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Carter, Velus Jones, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Tyler Scott made the team. For the tight ends, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, Mercedes Lewis. For the offensive linemen, we kept 10 of them: Kiran Amegaji, Ryan Bates, Nate Davis, Tevin Jenkins, Braxton Jones, Doug Kramer Jr., Bill Murray, Matt Pryor, Coleman Shelton, and Darnell Wright. And going over to the defense, D linemen, we kept 10: Andrew Billings, Austin Booker, Javon Dexter, Daniel Hardy, Zach Pickens, Dominique Robinson, Montez Sweat, Darrell Taylor, DeMarcus Walker, Chris Williams. And then linebackers, we kept 5: Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Amen Ogbong Bemiga, Jack Sanborn, Noah Sewell. Defensive backs, we kept 10 of them: Josh Blackwell, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, Kyler Gordon, Elijah Hicks, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Jones, Jonathan Owens, Terrell Smith, Tyreek Stevenson, and for the specialists, obviously Cairo Santos, Patrick Skills, and Torrey Taylor made the team. Now, I believe Patrick Skills is going on IR to begin the year, so not really sure what's happening with that. Maybe we re-sign Cameron Lyons to be our backup long snapper while Patrick Scales is out, or maybe we sign a different one because Cameron Lyons was not really that good in the preseason. There was a bunch of high snaps, which really affected the field goals that, Kyra was attempting. I think that was even pointed out on the broadcast, right? So kind of hope we go after somebody else if Patrick Skills is indeed injured to begin the year. But yeah, overall, this is a very solid roster from top to bottom. Like, definitely one of the best rosters the Bears have had in a long time. Definitely since 2018. I don't think we've had this much talent on both sides of the football. I think we're definitely a little bit weak in terms of O-line depth and also D-line depth. That's where, in the coming years, Ryan Poles has to do more work there. But otherwise, it is a pretty damn good roster. Talking about some notable players that made the team. So obviously, everybody's favorite, Velus Jones, made the roster, which I am in agreement with, even though I know a lot of Bears fans want nothing to do with him anymore. I think that Velus had a pretty solid training camp in preseason, and they want to give him one last chance to really prove himself. And guys, you have to admit, like, when he has the ball in his hands, he is damn electric. Like, one of the most electric players in the NFL. But the problem is he makes a lot of mistakes. So I really hope he's learned from his past and, worked on his catching, worked on his, ability to track the ball, and really, is not going to be making the same mistakes he made in the previous years this year, when every game does matter a lot for the Bears. But as a main kick returner, like, I think he could be pretty solid because, again, with the new kickoff return rules, you need a guy that's explosive, that can, take it all the way. And Velus Jones, if he can just hang on to the football, he has one of the highest average yards per kickoff return in the NFL so far in his career. So, really rooting for a comeback story from Velus Jones. It was also pretty interesting that DeAndre Carter made the team, probably as the main punt returner on this team, because we know that Velus cannot return punts to save his life. So we have a dedicated punt returner, which seems to be DeAndre Carter. I think there is a chance that the Bears do cut him, though, if there is other guys out there available, which there are. Okay, the Seahawks cut D. Eskridge, and D. Eskridge had a punt return touchdown in the preseason, so maybe that's the guy that Ryan Poles could go after, maybe some other guys, but at least for right now, DeAndre Carter did make the team. I was pretty pissed to see Dominique Robinson make the team. Obviously I have nothing against him personally, but he has done literally nothing on this team. And I know that I was kind of defending Velus a couple minutes ago, which is pretty hypocritical because Velus Jones also has done nothing in his career so far for the Chicago Bears, nothing really positive. But at least with Velus, I can see him potentially turning into like a Cordero Patterson type of guy, because there is a role for these gadgety type of players that have a lot of speed, a lot of acceleration, but maybe not the best route running. So there is still a world in which Velus can be successful, in my opinion, in the NFL. But when you look at Dominique Robinson, I just don't see it at all. Like, he was getting washed by fourth-string offensive linemen in the preseason. I know he had a couple good plays, but he did not do nearly enough to really earn my trust and to earn a roster spot on the Chicago Bears. I mean, at least Velus Jones had a pretty good preseason. I don't think Dominique Robinson had a good preseason, but somehow Ryan Poles still is hanging on to him. So maybe I'm proven wrong about this, but as of the moment, not really happy that Dominique Robinson made it in because I don't think he has much value. It was also pretty cool to see Amen Ogbombemiga. It's so hard to say his last name, but I think I finally got that down. Cool to see him also make the team as well. He's from Nigeria and, had some pretty good plays in the preseason. He had a pretty bad Hall of Fame game, but after that, he performed pretty well. I'm a little bit surprised that Micah Baskerville did not make it over him, but, I'm not going to cry about it. But I am, maybe a little bit concerned that Noah Sewell has not really done anything for the Bears up to this point. And, obviously the Bears are not going to get rid of him so early, being a 5th round pick. But, Noah Sewell does have to show something as a special teams contributor, or at least like as a depth linebacker when he is on the football field, because so far his production has been very, very limited. But yeah, that is the entire Bears 53-man roster. Besides those guys, not really too surprised to see the other guys make it in. And let me know what you guys think about this roster down below in the comments. Are you guys very optimistic about the Bears going into this season? Are you guys still waiting it out a little bit to see if you can be optimistic, which I totally understand because, You know, being Bears fans, we have been hyped about so many teams in the past that just completely crumbled, completely fell flat on their faces. So for a lot of us, we have to see it to believe it. But at least on paper, the Bears have a damn good roster right now. And I think that we could make more additions too in the coming days based on, you know, who's available on the waiver wire and also from cuts made today. So leave your comments down below, guys. As always, bear down.